All right, so now we're going to talk about chi-square test of independence, and that's where you ask two different categorical questions and see if the frequency of the results is influenced by one or the other question. So, for example, right here, we could have asked people, what's your age range? And what's your Likert response to see if younger people value some things over older people. A lot of people do their surveys on millennials because that's a new hot topic. So let's say you want to know if age influences response. If you want to know if age influences response, you want to know if response is dependent upon age. All right, so our H sub O would be response and age are independent, and HA, response and age are dependent. And that's always how it goes. No matter what, independent is H sub O, dependent is H sub A, because we would assume that there's no relationship until we can prove one, not the other way around. So our alpha level is 0.05 forever. The test we're going to run is a chi-square test of independence. I'm typing fast here so we can get through the video without it taking forever. All right, so there's a chi-square test of independence. So what I have to do is I have to figure out if these numbers in this chart are the same as what would be expected. So to figure that out, I highlight a 3x5 zone, because this was 3 age groups and 5 responses. I type equals, and then I highlight the bottom, times, highlight the side, divided by, highlight the corner, the corner, and hit Control, Shift, Enter. And I get a whole bunch of decimals. Yay! So now I have to get a chi-square p-value, and that's just like the goodness of fit one. So I'm going to hit FX, choose chi-test. My actual range is the inside, and my expected range is here. And then I can hit Enter. Ooh, and I get a super tiny one. Interesting. What's interesting about this is I did it randomly, and it still seems to show a dependence. So interesting. So I'm going to hit OK, and I got 6.12806 E negative 46. Holy cow. That is interesting. Sorry, I'm the only one who's really shocked by that. It should have been a little bit more random, but apparently it's not quite so random. So interesting. Anyway, so E negative 46, that means there's 45 zeros in front of that 6. So that's an insanely small number, like insanely small number. So we got a p-value of, let's see, I'm going to write it as 6.12 times 10 to the negative 46. Teeny tiny. So teeny tiny. So that's a teeny tiny p-value. If p is small, we can reject the null. So my conclusion is going to be reject HO because the p-value is way less than 0.05. So in context, that means that we rejected HO and support HA, which indicates that age and response are dependent. The age group seems to influence the Likert answer. Okay. There's chi-square test of independence. Now, the annoying part with this is I gave you all the data this time, but you don't always get all the data. Sometimes you got to make it up on your own, such as sheet 1. So I'm going to delete this other stuff from the other test I ran. I don't need it. And what I'm going to make is I am going to make a pivot table. I want to know how many of the zeros answered 1, how many of the 1s answered 1, how many of the 1s answered 3, and so on. So to make a pivot table, I'm going to highlight all this data. I'm going to go to Insert Pivot Table. Selected, fine. New worksheet exists. I'm going to do existing worksheet, so it just stays on here. And pick a location, I don't know, here. Sure. and hit OK. And now my gender, I think, influences the Likert response. The Likert response doesn't influence the gender. That would be weird. So the thing you think does the influencing, you're going to grab it with your mouse and drag it down here to rows. And then the thing you think is influenced gets put in both columns and in values. But once you put it in values, you need to click on this little drop down and go to value field settings and change it to count. Right now it's doing the sum. I don't want that. I want the count. And that all looks great. And in here, I found sometimes Excel gets angry if we don't have the zeros. It doesn't look like I can type it in, but we're just going to hope things work out. I don't know why the pivot table doesn't put a 0 in, but I can't change that. All right, so now I want to know if what's going on in here is influenced. So just like in the last one, I start with a pivot table. Now what I want to do, this is also called a two-way table, by the way. Now what I want to do is make my expected table. So we had 2 genders and 5 responses. So I'm going to go down to over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, doesn't matter where it is as long as it's 2 by 5. And I'm going to hit equals. I'm going to highlight the bottom, times, highlight the side, divided by, highlight the corner, Control, Shift, Enter. And I get all of this. So now I'm going to do a chi-p value, fx, chi-test, actual is right here, expected is right here. And hit OK. 0.16, which is not less than 0.05. So if I were going to write about this, I'd say, does gender influence response? HO, gender and response are independent. HA, gender and response are dependent. I'm not worrying about my spelling right now. The test we're running is a chi-test of independence. Our alpha is always 0.05. Our p-value in this case is 0.16. 0.16 is not less than 0.05. So our conclusion, since 0.16 isn't less than 0.05, we can't reject HO and therefore retain the possibility that gender and response are independent. And there it is. So there's your chi-square test of independence. And I am done for now. So have a wonderful day and enjoy doing chi-square tests on Excel.